Okay, apologies for not having any videos up on the channel for the last few days. There's been a lot going on, which I'll explain in another video later on. But I've just watched Wales versus France. Wales have deservedly won 20 points to 19, although if the French had won 19 points to 17, for example, which it was looking like, or 19 points to 18, sorry, when the try went over, and if Wales had missed the conversion, it would have been deserved by the French as well. It was one of those games where fine margins have decided the outcome. The French missing several kicks at goal. That has proved crucial. Goal kicking has proven so crucial in this tournament. And Ntamack missing some kicks in the first half. That has actually come back to bite the French. His injury has affected them as well, but the big moment, the self-destruct button, about 50 minutes into the game, was the Valmahina red card. Deserved. There is no argument about that. The Tipperick try at the end, towards the end of the second half, it's a 50-50 call. It's not the most clear if the ball went fully forward on the axis. Another day, the TMO would say that it is slightly forward from the rip off the back of the French winning their scrum with only 7 men in the scrum. I think that's a fine call as well. But the game as a whole, Wales do need to improve in certain areas. The French, we know where the future lies with the French now. A player like Ntamack at fly half, a running fly half, one who doesn't kick as much, it seems to suit the French attacking style. They seem to be more fluid in attack when a player of Ntamack's mould. I'm not saying just Ntamack, but they need to find other fly halves like Ntamack so they can play in that style because it works for them. Playing more free-flowing, running rugby seems to work for the French. The amount of offloads they had in this game, or attempted offloads, were through the roof. That led to some handling errors, but they weren't afraid to throw it around. And this is the type of French rugby that we need going forward, because this is why France have been so successful at World Cups, is when they play like that, they tend to, well, do rather well. And they've never failed to reach the knockout stages of a World Cup either. So there is a thing here for French rugby. They need to keep this momentum going with Fabien Galtier as coach going forward, because I believe he's the guy really pulling the strings in the coaching setup at the moment. Jacques Brunel, I don't think has really had the respect of the players for a long time. On the Welsh side of things, their defence early on wasn't great. They were cut to ribbons a little bit. We know there's been some issues in the build-up to this game, and obviously into this tournament with the Rob Howley situation, somewhat, which may have caused some issues with organisation, especially of the back line in defence. And the French really created overlaps they shouldn't be creating. On the French side of things, you can tell the issues that they have had with the disorganisation for quite some time when it comes to defence. The Welsh try in the first half from Wainwright, very poor organisation when the ball's turned over. They're unstructured all the time. And what the French do need is that little bit of structure. Not all the time. They thrive off open play and flair, which we have seen, and it has served them very well in this tournament, even when they're not playing well. I don't know how the French can keep doing this, though. They play really well in World Cups, or do really well in World Cups in the sense that they get to the knockout stages and they show flashes of brilliance, even when the team itself is dysfunctional. And then for the rest of the time in the next 4-year cycle, they're not very good. Look at the Six Nations in recent years, especially under Jacques Brunel. They need to solve this. And if Fabien Galtier is the way forward with a bit more of that free-flowing flair, but also the defence today by the French was actually pretty decent. Considering their discipline wasn't the best, and that did cost them and missed kicks. The French one-on-one tackling was very, very good. The physicality was right. Discipline's killed them again. Wales, there's a few areas they need to work on. It's not their best performance, but the character they showed in the second half, especially the red card, yes, it took them a while to get points though, so they need to capitalise on certain things from the opposition, because if Japan or South Africa get through, they're going to be a far better team than the French. The Japanese are on form at the moment. They've won every game they've played. The South Africans, while they lost to the All Blacks and they could have won that game had they not made a few key errors, they've been on form as well. And the Welsh need to just step up that little bit. There's still areas in their defence. If the Japanese beat the South Africans, they've got the pace to cause Wales problems, as shown by how the French played in the first 50-odd minutes of the game. So if the Japanese want to run the ball a lot, the Welsh need to improve that defence off first, second phase ball coming out the 22. If the Japanese have shown they want to run the ball a lot, and they're not afraid to, and they have some very, very dangerous outside runners from in the backs. So that's an area where they need to work on a little bit. Is look at the tape of the Japanese this World Cup, and how they played for the last 5, 6, 7 years. They play this way. They play fast pace. They like quick ruck balls. If they can slow the ruck and maul down and get that defence right, they should be okay. But also, there were times where the Welsh were giving away penalties. So while they're one of the most disciplined sides in world rugby, the battle at the ruck and maul, they need to really try and contest every ruck against the Japanese and slow it down, and work on their outside back defence. This is where Stephen Jones is going to prove really crucial. I know he's different to Rob Howley in his style of backline play and organisation in defence and attack, but they need to figure something out because the French did expose them at times. The French going forward, Entomac is the future at fly half, and other fly halves in that mould, because ball running fly halves seem to work for France. Camille Lopez is the past. He needs to be binned off. He's not expansive enough. He's too methodical. He's too structured. He's too conservative, and the French don't thrive off that conservatism. They need aggression and fearlessness. Even if they lose games, as long as they're going down fighting. They sort of did that today, but Camille Lopez and that style of fly half where it's just kick all the time doesn't suit the French style that they need to be successful. And yes, we may have seen the last of Maxime Médard at a World Cup, maybe Louis Picamol at a World Cup, and that is a shame because while the French have been dysfunctional for a long time, about 8-9 years now, if not more, they've been some highlight performers over them during that period. So we shall see what happens with them going forward. They also need to work out who their captain is long term, because to have a captain that can't complete 80 minutes is a thing that's becoming more of a trend in rugby, and that seems to affect the French more when Girardeau goes off to be replaced by Camille Chat or whoever is the replacement hooker. That seems to be an issue. But Wales go into the semi-finals, and whoever they play, be it South Africa or Japan, they're going to be in, I think, a much more difficult contest, because I think the South Africans are better than the French by a long way, and I actually honestly believe the Japanese right now and how they're playing and the emotion they're playing on, I would have battered that French side today because the pace they play the game. French fitness is another issue going forward. The Welsh character, that's what they showed a lot of today. Their defence not as watertight as it has been in the Six Nations when it was just a brick wall. They were more expansive going forward. They are becoming more expansive as well. I think that's Stephen Jones's imprint, is to have the backs be more expansive. I have noticed that, but it's going to be a great semi-final lineup. England have got New Zealand and Wales pending, and it's just going to be amazing if it's two Northern Hemisphere sides versus two Southern Hemisphere sides. That would be a pretty balanced World Cup, because last time around it was all Southern Hemisphere sides at this stage. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave your comments below, and I'll have some more videos for you very, very soon.